Hello, welcome back to the Kay Stein Sapir podcast. I thought I would just start using my name as the title since commiseration is kind of a long word, and I feel like maybe it's easier to just look for my name when people search for the podcast. But we shall continue to commiserate. I am here with my cup of tea, and I am so grateful to Stephanie Renner for being my first guest on the podcast last week. I thought it was a really powerful conversation we had about her son Jordan and her grief and Mother's Day. And I'm really happy that Stephanie also started writing on Substack. I am really happy when I can inspire others to just kind of go for it, whether it's perfect or not, which it never is, but to just start. Where you are with what you have, using what you've got. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I actually did get some new podcasting equipment, but it's at our new space for the Molly Stein Sapir Foundation, which is going really well. I've been swamped, kind of getting it going. We have so many wonderful things in the works with that. We also found a new place to live, which is a huge relief because I've been just, it's a big stressor not knowing where you're going to live in a short period of time. So I'm super excited about it. We are signing an 18-month lease, really beautiful home, and really, really a weight off to kind of have that settled. So I have just been completely underwater. I've got my tea here, but this is an evening cup of tea. I'm coming back. I've been out all day, running around, taking care of the Molly Stein Sapir community space, getting all of our services and donations for fire victims all ready to go. I was at an event at Nate's school tonight, so I'm pretty tired, but I haven't had a chance to talk to you this week, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get to, but I thought I'd hop on and talk with you for a bit because someone left a review of the podcast focusing on the war in Gaza. Now, this podcast is not about Israel. It's not about the war in Gaza. It's not even particularly about Judaism. It's just a podcast that I wanted to start so that I could share some of the things that I've been through that I think might help other people. And other people tell me they're helpful to them. And I have a lot of friends and contacts that I want to bring on because I think their stories are incredibly inspiring and moving and interesting. And I want to introduce them to you. So my idea with this podcast is pretty simple. I suppose because I'm someone who cares a lot about politics, that of course I can't help but comment on the crazy politics of the day. That's just kind of who I am. But with regard to Gaza and Israel, I thought I would just spend a little time talking about it, just so we can all be clear on where I stand. Because the person who left this review really has got a lot of things twisted when it comes to me and my views on the war, on Israel, etc. But this isn't surprising. These folks paint with a broad brush, and they don't really want to hear or understand. They are interested in their own narratives. And so what this woman has said in giving this podcast a 1-star review is that I'm perpetuating a trope that anyone protesting the war is a Hamas supporter. Now, I've never said that. I don't believe that. Of course I don't, because many people are protesting, and I try to avoid groupthink and, again, painting with a broad brush. I don't know why people are protesting. I think certainly it's troubling that right after October 7th, you saw a lot of people coming out, attacking Israel, saying that the atrocities of October 7th were resistance and that somehow Israel deserved for these things to happen. Of course, I don't believe that. I think a lot of folks have gotten carried away with this sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, on the left, this progressive virtue signaling that, somehow to establish your progressive bona fides, you have to be part of the Free Palestine movement and you have to be anti-Israel. Now, I don't fit that mold because I'm not part of that movement, and I support Israel. So I suppose that's why I've gotten into the crosshairs with some of these folks. Now, as I said, of course, I don't believe that everyone protesting is a Hamas supporter, and I absolutely support the right for people to peacefully protest, as I've said many, many times. I do have a son on the UCLA campus, so I get to see up close and personal some of the really disruptive conduct that people on the campus have been engaged in the name of Palestine. I also don't believe that these actions do anything to support the people of Palestine. I actually follow and amplify the voices of many Palestinian people who also explain why these people are not really pro-Palestinian and are actually harming, the case for Palestinians in Gaza. So if you follow me, you would know that I respect those voices and I share them, and I am always learning from them, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's not true. The person goes on to accuse Israel of genocide. I do not believe Israel has engaged in genocide, and the facts bear that out. When we're talking about genocide, the population is not supposed to increase, it's supposed to decrease, right? And it's supposed to be, this has a specific definition, right? And you have to have the intent to destroy a people for whatever reason, for their ethnicity, for their religion, but it's an intention to destroy people. And Israel doesn't have the intention to destroy the Palestinian people. I firmly believe that that's the case. And even if you take the numbers that the Gaza Ministry of Health, which is Hamas, has shared, right? Even if you took those numbers as true, they don't bear out genocide. They just don't. When you look at those numbers versus the population of the Palestinians, they don't bear it out. If you really want to see genocide, you don't have to look very far. You could look to China and the Uyghurs, where 1 million people were genocided, that being China genociding the Uyghurs. You could look to Sudan, where hundreds of thousands have been slaughtered in Darfur. Myanmar, 750,000 people. Ethiopia, 600,000 starved and massacred for their ethnicity. So you don't have to look far for these examples. And yet we don't hear these voices who are clamoring about Free Palestine saying anything about that. And I find it hypocritical because I'm someone, and my family as well, we've been talking about this for a long time. I've shared with you that our daughter Molly, as young as 9 and 10 years old, was so concerned about the war in Syria, about the actions of Bashar al-Assad, killing his people, Muslim people, that she would constantly talk to us about that. And she was devastated about the atrocities that were taking place in Syria. And she would be also heartbroken by the war in Gaza, as am I. This reviewer, Erica, says, I am blinded by rage over October 7th. Now, I don't know how Erica knows how I feel. I don't know that I've expressed rage over October 7th, although I think it's, of course, outrageous. But, I have avoided, because I've lost a child, because I can't really handle looking at images of particularly children being harmed and murdered, and whatever the case may be. And that's true with regard to the Israelis. And I purposely, didn't go to the Nova exhibit because I knew it was going to be too difficult for me to see. And similarly, I don't look at images very often of the war, of people being bombed and children being harmed. And I've actually shared many times on my social media feeds about children in Gaza who are innocent and who every single life matters. And I've said that many, many times. And as a grieving mother myself, I've also shared many times that I know the pain of losing a child, and it is very difficult for me to see that happen to anyone, whether they are Palestinian or they are Israeli or they any person at all. And my heart goes out to them. And I've said this. So I don't know who this person is, but they obviously don't know me. I think rage would be hard for me to say I felt about October 7th, because honestly, I just can't even fathom it. I cannot fathom the Hamas terrorists breaking into Israel and going into the kibbutzim, which are, a kibbutz. For those of you who don't know, my husband John actually used to live and work on kibbutz. It's sort of a place like a farm, essentially, where it's communal living. The people who lived on the border, the Israelis who lived on the border, southern border of Israel next to Gaza, were people who believed in peace, and they were there on the border because they were trying to achieve peace, and they were helping to bring people who were in Gaza over to Israel for medical treatment and so on and so forth. So I think my feeling about October 7th is more one of just like disbelief and inability to imagine what it's like for all of these men to come into a country to take civilians hostage, to rape women so forcibly that their pelvises break, to drive nails into their vaginas and their thighs, to behead people. And I mean, this is just something I can't even fathom at all. All the people who were at the Nova Music Festival, and the sheer number of people impacted on October 7th, I think it's really hard for Americans and others in the West to comprehend. I think it's equivalent to like 44 9/11s or something along those lines, just by proportion in terms of the amount of people who were murdered and also abducted. So it's something we can't even begin to fathom. Israel is such a small country; it's the size of New Jersey. So I don't know that rage is an emotion that I've really been able to muster about the situation. Although I certainly think that's a very valid emotion to have about it. But for me personally, as I've not really been able to look at this directly, rage isn't really how I would describe my own feelings about it. So I'm not blinded by rage. I'm actually, I think, quite measured. As many of you know, we had a Muslim au pair live with us for the last year and a half, someone who's very anti-Israel. And, we were a model of peaceful coexistence. We learned from each other, and we became very close, and we have a very good relationship, despite our differences. So, the idea that I, don't have empathy for people because they're Muslim or because they're Palestinian or because they're in Gaza is just false. So, what else does this lady say? She says, I have not shed a tear of concern for babies and kids who have been murdered. How does she know if I'm shedding tears? Um, you know, I don't know that I have either, but it's not because I don't care. I think I have actually. I think, as I said, I don't see a lot of the images of people being blown to bits because I genuinely cannot handle it. Again, it's not for lack of care. But how does she know if I'm shedding a tear? I would shed a tear over any child, any baby whose life is cut short. I'm also devastated about the loss of this poor pregnant woman in Israel who was just murdered. Um, and her baby has to come into the world and never have a mother because her mother was murdered by Palestinian terrorists, and that is being celebrated by many of them. So I find that also impossible to understand, comprehend, believe, accept. I mean, it's terrible. So, Erica, I haven't chosen the violent or wrong side of history. That's what you said. You said other Jews have been able to criticize Israel for its genocide. You know, to each their own, right? Throughout history, if you're a student of history, you'll know that hatred of Jews is the oldest form of hatred, right? And throughout history, there have always been Jews who try to be accepted, even if it means that they are denying part of who they are. And I say that not that Jews can't criticize Israel, because of course they can, and they do all the time. I do, by the way. I've said since the beginning, I don't support Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't support his government. I'm also not an Israeli. What do I really know? I've been to Israel. It's a wonderful country. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, which I can attest to since I did spend a couple weeks there. I'm always memorialized in Israel, in the Negev desert, at a village for disabled children. And that village serves all children, doesn't matter who they are. It's a place that's available to people who need services because they're profoundly disabled. So, you know, I it makes me sad that Jewish people are attacked just for being Jews, right? Like, because that's really what it amounts to. This has been ongoing, and it's happened all throughout history. This is just the latest chapter of history repeating itself. And when you see a wave of anti-Semitism, like we're seeing now, you've got Kanye out with his new song, Heil Hitler, and people seem to love it. And there's all kinds of salutes to Hitler, and you've got Joe Rogan saying it's catchy and having all these crazy anti-Semites on his show. It's like the only thing the right and left tend to agree about is their hatred of Jews. I come at it with a unique perspective in that I am not Jewish by birth. I did not even know a Jewish person until college. I grew up in the Central Valley of California in a town with very few Jews. So I have a bit of a different perspective. I certainly am not indoctrinated, right? I'm not religious. I converted to Judaism after John and I were married. John is Jewish. His mother is not. His father is. But he was raised Jewish. It very much, identifies with being Jewish. He's very proud of that. Our children are Jewish. I converted, and I wasn't raised religious. So for me, I was sort of just adding. It was enriching my life. I didn't replace anything. And the Jewish teachings and traditions, as I understand them, resonate with me. They are all about the kind of values I want to teach my kids about how to take care of the world, how to care for animals, how to care for other people, how to be a good person, how to love learning, how, to be a steward of the earth, repair the world, all sorts of things. I certainly have not heard any sort of intolerance taught in any of the Jewish institutions I've been in. I am a board member of our synagogue, and it is a very open and loving and tolerant place. Many people who send their kids there are not Jewish, who send their kids to the school there because it's a great, warm, loving, beautiful school. And I've had nothing but positive experiences. And I somehow kind of knew that because my family, I think this is why, I think because my family has so many challenges and issues, I knew I wanted my kids to have more than just me and John, like in case things, I don't know, life, right? Like maybe I wouldn't have made it from cancer. Maybe I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, whatever. Like, I wanted my kids to have more support. And we certainly found that at our synagogue. And I've made some of my best friends there. And the moms that I met when Molly started preschool there are some of my dearest and closest friends to this day. So none of us are particularly religious. For myself, I would just say I'm, of course, a very spiritual person. And I've said many times on religion that I don't view any religion as superior or better or right. Like, I think religions are beautiful and I appreciate learning about the different religions. And I think we're all kind of part of a tapestry. And we all have beautiful traditions, and including Muslims. I learned a lot about that from our au pair Qatar, and actually so many similarities between Muslims and Jews. It's really quite amazing to me that there's so much hatred because they're actually incredibly similar peoples in many respects. And of course, I think the vast majority of people are not radical or not terrorists, are not. I think most people, as I've always said it a million times. So this person, again, obviously doesn't know or follow me because I've said it a million times. I do believe most people are good. Most people want peace. Most people are, share the values that I talked about just wanting to raise good kids and lead productive and happy lives and leave the world a little better than we found it. I think that's most people. I think that is most Muslims. I think it's most Jews. I think that's just most people. And the radical folks, the extremists, are very loud and get a lot of attention. And, therefore they have an outsized influence in some cases. I'll also say, I listened to this other podcast. It's called On Being Jewish with this guy, Jonah Platt. And he said something recently that I've been thinking about. It was like, his point was sort of like about why do people not see the truth about certain things related to Israel and the Jews? Hey, Eli, what's up, bud? I'm just doing my podcast. I'll be right with you, okay? Love you, bud. So his idea was like, and forgive me, guys, I'm a bit tired. It's been a long day, but I did just want to come on and talk about this for a few minutes. And again, none of this is scripted, none of it's edited, none of this is just me talking to you. So Jonah was making the point, like, it was sort of, the question was like, well, why is it that like people believe things that are false about Jews, or they don't understand certain things about Israel, whatever. And it's like, he made the really good point about the fact that we just live in these sort of social media bubbles, right? Like these information ecosystems, and like the people, here's an example that he gave, right? His example was about Van Jones, the anchor from CNN. And so Van Jones has been someone who's supportive of Jews, and, sort of an ally and, a friend of Jonah's and all of this. And so someone said to him, that she was so upset on this particular day uh, because of the Bebas children, because of the two little redheaded children who were abducted by Hamas and murdered, and their bodies were returned to Israel. And it was this horrible, horrible, the whole thing with the Bebas family, with the mother, the whole story surrounding um, Kafir and Ariel Bibas, and Shiri Bibas, the mother, it has been really, really devastating for the Jewish people. And this person said to Van Jones, I can't focus. I'm so upset today, whatever. And he said, well, really, why? What's going on? And it was the day that I think the children were returned to Israel in coffins. And she said, well, because of the Bebas children. And he said, who are the Bebas children? Who are the Bebases? And this is someone, again, who, first of all, is like a professional reporter and someone very involved with the news, and someone who's a friend of the Jews. And like, he had no idea about this. This is something that's like deeply impacting the Jewish people. I know I felt very, very sad on that day. And not just that day. The whole thing is just heartbreaking and unimaginable. But the point Jonah made was like, well, he didn't know because it's not coming up on his social media feed, right? And so, because I have follow Jewish accounts and pro-Israel accounts, I see these things. I don't see on my feed a lot of stuff coming up that reflects suffering in Gaza. And that is a function of these algorithms, right? So it's not, when the idea like I'm not sharing that content is not because I don't care about suffering in Gaza, because I do, just like I care about suffering in any war. And that's what I would say about the idea that it's a genocide. I think it's a war and it's horrific. And I wish there were no wars. And I absolutely don't want to see any innocent lives lost, certainly not children. In Judaism, there's this idea that, like, and this is why Israel fights so hard to bring back every single Israeli citizen, right? Is like the idea that one person is like the universe. If you can save one person, you save the world. And that applies to everyone, in my view. That applies to everyone. So, of course it does. So the idea, like, these children in Gaza and babies and things that have been murdered or not, who have died because of this war. I don't want to say murdered, because murder involves intent. And I do not believe that the IDF intends to kill children. I really don't. I believe that Israel mourns the loss of innocent life, because that's a Jewish value. I think Hamas puts innocent people in harm's way purposely, and it's horrible. But that doesn't mean that the loss of each of those people is not the loss of an entire universe, right? Who knows what possibilities there could have been for that child. So anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about these things, kind of like what I have said about this and what I haven't said. I have, of course, said that we support the state of Israel. We're proud Jews. That's 95% of Jews, by the way. The idea that, oh my gosh, all these Jews have said that Israel's committing genocide. That's not true. The vast majority of Jewish people support the existence of the state of Israel, and many of us are very critical of Netanyahu and of the war. Personally, I think the war should come to an end. I don't know what is being accomplished by further military strikes. I'm also not anybody who knows anything about about wars and fighting and the military. So I stay quiet about this because I don't know anything about this. I have no expertise whatsoever. But as a complete outsider who's focused on other things, who sees this on the periphery, seems to me like the war should end. Of course, the hostages should be returned. They need to come home. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will. And I think it's tragic, and I pray for them and I pray for their families. I really do. And I pray for an end to the war and for all of the innocent lives lost. So I wish people didn't attack Jews over what happens in Israel. And it's just like an insane idea. One of Eli's best friends is Russian. From Russia, came here at the beginning of the war. And I spent time with him and his mom and Eli, and like no one would ever dream of like attacking them because they're Russian. Like, okay, like they're Russian. You wouldn't ask them to like denounce who they are and support and love of their country because they're Russian, because of the war, because of Putin. So I don't know. I think it's all crazy and very sad and nothing new at all. Just another chapter in history of anti-Semitism. And I think the best answer to that is for us to be strong and proud Jews and to lean into our peoplehood. And I say our, even though, this is something I adopted later in life. I do feel like it's where I belong. And I said to John, we were kind of joking, and I was like, well, I was considering like if we ever divorce, like if I would still be Jewish or not, because it's not easy. I mean, it's like when I converted, I don't think I was aware that all of this was going to be coming my way. So I said, would I still be Jewish? I don't. And I was like, yeah, actually I would. Even if I was not married to you, I would, because I have so much respect for the Jewish people and their resilience. They've been persecuted unlike no other throughout history. And they are so incredibly strong, and they know how to embrace life while also living with grief and pain and loss. And for me, I mean, that's kind of that's the story of my life now, right? I have to live with my constant companion of grief, and I need to embrace life. I need to have joy. I need to enjoy my time here on earth with my family and try to do some good in the world. And that includes, again, through Molly's foundation, I try to do all the things that I think she would have done if she had lived longer, and what I think would make her proud of me. And, I know people have a problem with it, but Molly was a very proud Jew. She was, she loved Israel. And so I carry on that mantle, and I'm proud to do it. I am very proud to do it. I love Israel. I can't wait to go back. I hope the war ends. I pray for peace for everyone involved. So, L'chaim, to life, as the Jews say. And thank you all for commiserating with me and maybe understanding a bit about where I'm coming from in this regard. And please know that, that the comments that people leave regarding this matter are not reflective of me and what's on my heart and what I care about or anything I've said. So thank you. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would love for you to leave a review, follow, leave some positive words to counteract the haters. Thank you so much, and I will see you very soon with my next guest.